Hey, good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can. Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Would you be presenting or anybody in
I am.
particular from the group?
Yep, I'm presenting.
Okay, can you just make sure you have access to share the screen? And then we'll start letting everybody in.
Yep, I do.
Okay,
I have
perfect. And
access.
then same as before, I'll let you pretty much take over from the beginning. Quick intro, whatever intro you'd like, as long as you'd like, just so they can get familiarized if it is their first time. And then we'll pretty much wrap it up towards the end, summarize it, any questions, and then we'll log off and I'll probably jump in towards the end just to invite them to the next session.
Okay.
All right, perfect. So, all right, I can see your screen, and then we'll start letting everyone in. All right, give me 1 second, and we'll let everybody in.
Okay. Sounds great. Oh, my camera went off.
All right, we're admitting everybody now.
Wonderful. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. By my clock, I see it's 12:01. I know some are still joining. I'll just give it a couple seconds and we'll go ahead and begin session 3 of our series. Excited to have you all on. It's good. Okay. Well, I'll begin. I think I've seen a lot of that's been admitted to the room already. And again, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Build for Profit. This is our construction series. This is session number 3, pricing materials. Now, if you've already joined us for the earlier sessions, you already know the theme that we're looking at. We're helping contractors make decisions that protect margin, of course, without slowing down the business here. So today's session is one I'm excited about. I'm excited about all of them that we have because pricing is one of those areas where small changes create big time results, as you may know. And I want to say this up front, pricing, no, it's not guesswork. There's data, there's factors around that. So pricing can be a repeatable decision model. And in the type of work that we do with the Virtual X and Dale Morgan Consulting, we do like to try to understand behaviors and processes and get to the key factors so we can predict how things may be. It's not exact, right? But we like to be able to predict and plan accordingly. So before we start, just quick context for everyone. We are speaking to a mixed group, as you know, and the way we like to stay engaged. I see some chat going on already. The hellos, I love that. Please keep that going. But just drop in the chat. So if you are a contractor, maybe your focus is commercial, maybe you're more residential, maybe you're public sector, maybe you're a mix of both. Just maybe put that in the chat so we can kind of get a feel for uh, your type of customers and clients that you support. So just drop that in the chat as we keep moving forward. I'll go to the next slide here. So here's the flow. We're going to move through this pretty quickly, just the different pieces here. We'll talk about why pricing fails in predictable ways. We'll then get a foundational concept in place, markup versus margin, because it could be confusing in some cases, the difference between the two, right? We'll then identify where margin actually goes in the real world, and that's we'll get into some of the 5 common margin leaks, and then 4-part bid pricing formula. We'll talk about risk, premium categories as we're thinking about pricing. Well, what are the things that we should consider from risk to adjust pricing accordingly? We'll talk about common estimating traps and fixes, and then end with a like a pre-sin pricing checklist, right? To make sure, okay, have we thought through all the different pieces based off of what's going on in our business and the industry? What are the factors for this project or potential project? That way we would have the right guardrails in place. And at the end, it'll be a recommendation for to do like a self-check, kind of your own pricing accuracy, your own pricing strategy, and we'll wrap up with any just next steps in Q&A. That's the game plan that we have today. But quickly, before we jump into all of that, just for those who are new to this series, I'll keep this brief, just a little bit about DMC and who I am. So my name is Akil Hawkins. I am the Director of Business Transformation and also over the DMC Academy as well. My background is operational excellence, execution. That means we help organizations build repeatable systems that protect profit, improve speed, and reduce friction. So a little bit more about us, who we are. At Dillon Morgan Consulting, our mission is to partner with organizations, and really, I'm really passionate about this, to enable the successful execution of vision and strategy for contractors. That usually translates to three things, right? Improving the way work flows, strengthening financial discipline, and building operating habits that scale. So we take a with you approach, meaning we focus on what is practical and implementable, not just theory. And so we're not the type of consulting group who just provides advice. We actually like to get in the trenches and deliver. We focus on measurable impact. If the goal is to protect margin, we want you to know what changed, why it changed, and how to repeat it. And so you have the tangible tools to move forward. Also, very quickly, our work generally spans strategy execution, process improvement, insights and analytics, operational excellence, and governance. We also have AI enablement. But for this webinar series, you'll mainly see us, pull from process improvement and operational execution mindset and frameworks, because pricing discipline lives inside the way businesses operate. And then also, we just have experience and worked with different clients across the globe. And so that's something we're really proud of, to be able to share that. And showing in the local area in not just Texas, but across nationally, some of the cities that we've partnered with and we worked with as well. All right. So here's the objective for today. As we talk through this, when we're done, you'll walk out with a simple pricing formula that holds under volatility as things change, right? The formula remains the same. Clear rules for when to maybe lock, when to allow, and when to escalate. Again, this is conceptual. We do not provide any legal advice on this call, because everything is process oriented. And also then guardrails that scale, whether it's a small operation or a larger shop. So if you've ever said we should have charged more, right? Or maybe we thought we priced that right, or even maybe that job looked good until it didn't. So today is built for all those sorts of situations. So in the chat, and I like the conversation going on there. For you right now, this is us just all being transparent. What's harder to price out? Is it material price changes? Maybe is it labor hours? Maybe it's the subcontractor cost. I kind of have a hypothesis or a thought of what may come in just based off of some of the last series that we had already. But which one has been more challenging? Just kind of share that in the chat. Is it material price, labor hours, or subcontractor cost? So let's start with a simple truth as you're doing that. So pricing fails in predictable ways. And again, for our line of work, we like to understand what the processes are, the variables, but it's pretty predictable and where it could fail. It's, same mistakes, maybe by different names. Every shop, every operation has lived through some of these, right? One, two, maybe multiple. So you can think of these as a current state process, right? Different opportunity or failure points in the current state. So if we fix these, if we improve these, pricing can become more consistent by looking at that. So, and here are the 6 that we'll talk about, right? So one, it's gut feel bidding. No formula, just what feels right. That's not a process. It's It's more of a guess. Right now, it can work when things are stable and maybe there's been a pattern of behavior, but it breaks when things become very volatile, right? Kind of the patterns of behavior that worked in the past isn't going to work moving forward. That's what we call kind of like a gut feel piece. Uh, Second one, going across, maybe stale cost data, using last quarter's numbers on this week's job. This is about having the latest information and data. And so data is king. Data is so important for any process that we're trying to improve, even when it comes to pricing, making sure the data is accurate, it's up to date, and that's going to give us a clear picture of what's going on. Another one is on the top right corner, missing risk premium. And so for every project, every job, there's going to be risks in there. Uh, Now, if our pricing model is based off of a perfect world, then we're going to miss out, right? We're going to have some margin erosion, things are going to come up. So making sure that there's risk embedded into the pricing model. Four, no overhead recovery, forgetting or failing to include what it costs to run the shop into the price itself. So not just delivering it, but the overhead component of it. Five, the fifth one we have is aggressiveness to win the job. And sometimes this makes sense, right? I think every business has been in this position. Like at the end of the day, depending on how much work is there, just trying to get the job to at least meet current costs, right? To keep things moving forward. But that can then be a detriment later on if that's not adjusted for, right? As things get better. So intentional margin erosion, discounting, again, it's not wrong, but discounting without rules is how profit disappears, right? Okay, at what point are we going to change that discount? When are we going to relook at the pricing numbers? Different factors change, making sure that that does happen. And the last area that we see as an opportunity is that scope when scope isn't really known all the way, it's a little unclear. Uh, so priced as certainty, so when we think we understand the whole scope, but there's no allowances, no escalation paths if things do change. So if scope isn't firm, the pricing method has to match that uncertainty as well. So again, the key after all this, bids and pricing, it doesn't, fail on one decision or one of these factors. They fail based off of maybe a combination or uh, these small things here. Now, again, just from an engagement point, if one of these kind of stands out more in your line of work or what you're seeing, it's like, you know what? Yeah, this one probably shows up more for you. Just type that in the chat. Again, just kind of engage and share where you are. We're all here to learn and to grow. Now, as we get into this, there's the concept of markup and margin. And so we always believe in operational definition, we call it, right? Or aligning on the definition. What is that standard? What are we talking about here? So markup and margin are not the same. It's and you can see in the formula that we have here, one's based off of what it cost us, and increase, we set a price based off of what it cost us. And then margin is really based off of how much is left over for the price that we have. And so we want to make sure that we're maximizing margin as much as possible. So we do need a markup to endure risks, to endure overhead. We have to mark things up, but margin is really showing us the health as we move forward. So that's what we keep as a percent of price. So the example that we have here on this slide, just a $10,000 job. So if we would add 30% markup, the price would be 13,000. Right? But margin is only 23% in that case. But now if you add a 50% markup, your price is 15,000 and margin is 33%. And so if we're trying to understand our margin, we can back into the markup that's necessary, but everything does have to be considered based off of the true factors going on. So this is helpful to understand if you have a target margin, but your team is only speaking in the terms of markup, the pricing process, it wouldn't be consistent. And again, the idea of this series is we want to protect margin as much as possible. So starting with margin and backing into it is helpful, right? When we have that option, that flexibility to be able to do so. Now let's move into process, kind of looking at how we can improve this process, because margin doesn't just vanish, kind of leaks out in five different areas that we see. So the five major margin leaks are basically what we can kind of call a cost of poor quality uh, in pricing and in execution. So the first leak we'll call it is rework, whether that's like a wrong install, wrong specification, a wrong finish. Now we have to do work twice or even multiple times, and so that's one area of margin leak, and it's important to track all this and have data around it. Of course, we all want to do things right the first time, but that's one area of margin leak. Uh, Leak two could be returns, things that are over ordered, wrong size, restocking fees. We have seen this doing working with whether it's different cities or different clients. Uh, just the cost of reordering or needing to order things because the wrong thing was ordered, right? And hundreds of thousands of dollars spent just because of an ordering error. Leak three, delays, and that means you would have crew standing around, equipment idle, and as things are idle, sometimes it can get damaged because no one's using it and gets bumped, bruised, messed up. Schedule slips, that's a really big deal as far as margin leaks go. Four, wrong orders, field orders off outdated takeoff, maybe a wrong spec. So as the measurements were done at the beginning, maybe it was incorrect for the takeoff. And so now we've ordered the wrong thing based off of that. And then five, just unbilled extras, right? We did the work, but maybe we didn't have a change order in place, right? And that's something I do see a lot working with different businesses is the change order process, right? Whether it's a very solid change order process or maybe it's a little fluid, but sometimes the work is moving forward without a change order and approval process, and it's kind of the business owners get stuck on the back end where they've accomplished work that it's hard to bill for or get paid for as well. But these are different areas where there's margin leak that could occur. And so, like, let's say for an example, let's say you have a three-person crew, they're waiting 3 hours because material is wrong or missing. That's 9 labor hours lost. If you have a three-person crew for 3 hours, and if your loaded labor rate, let's say $60 per person, that's $540 gone, just in a simple example, right? Just margin gone, just like that. And that's before we count even consider rescheduling, equipment time, customer frustration, and so the point here is that pricing discipline alone doesn't save us if the process leaks margin after the bid. And so that's why that's important. So we want pricing discipline, but also understanding how we're executing is going to help save some of the margin. So we want to reduce those leaks. But let's think about then what the future is for as we look at a bid price. Okay. So this is the backbone as we talk about like from a future state. How do we do this better? Or what's the best practice? What could this be? So in our opinion, in our from what we've seen, every bid, every good one will have different components that's built into it as you get to a bid price. And if one of these are missing, we would say it's not complete to consider. So of course you have your base cost, we have overhead that will fix what we were talking about in the previous slides of some of the things that can go wrong, right? A defect or an error in the pricing, that including the overhead. But then also the risk premium, and then plus making sure we get to our target margin, right? That's our profitability. That's how we keep reinvesting back into the business, is considering that margin. And so let's just define each of these in just plain language. So base cost, materials, labor, equipment, your subcontractors, direct job costs, right? Overhead, office, insurance, administration, just the cost of being in business. Risk premium, that's the volatility, lead time, when scope is ambiguous, definitely need some little bit extra cushion in there just for some of the unknowns. And then last is that target margin again. Like, what is that take home that's necessary? What's the reason that you took the job, right? The overall payback to the company, to your business as a whole. Now, of course, again, when things are really competitive, I know there's a tendency to eat away or let some of the margin go. That's just the cost of doing business. But just always making sure there's a game plan, and that's very intentional to take a look at all that. So this formula forces anyone to price based off of reality, right? Because reality includes overhead and risk and margin, not just base cost. So in our example before, we talked about 10,000. 10,000 is an easy number to use. So if you have a $10,000 base cost, but you forget overhead, you forget recovery, the job might be one, but a lot of it's being funded with the business. Right? So if the premium gets ignored, volatility, material, so everything, again, you could still win the job, but now we're betting that the market won't move, right? Whether it's copper prices, as we know, fuel prices, uh, where we're hoping and praying that things don't change, but then that puts us more at risk, where things can be damaging later on. So the question I have, and it's something you don't have to put in the chat, but it's something to consider and think about. Do you or does your team consistently price all four components today? Or maybe do you tend to focus mostly on base costs plus a general markup, right? There's something to consider and think about. Again, our best practice is considering all four of these categories, but where are you today as we compare to this? Now, one of those categories we talked about was that risk premium. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Right? Because it's not just a number that we just pull up, right? There's some thinking around this. Risk premium, uh, it's a menu, right? You pick what applies and you add them up. And so in our case, we have five categories overall of it. So we can have rework risk, we can have subs, we have delivery, we have lead time, we have volatility. All these are different things that add to that risk profile, right? And so volatility, materials that are maybe fast moving prices, steel, copper, again, fuel. I know everyone's probably seen in the news about Spirit and maybe some other airlines that have been hit just because of the cost of fuel. It's hitting a lot of businesses, but that's a significant piece, right? Understanding how that plays in. Lead time, like long lead time items where delay changes in price or schedule. Uh, Delivery, is it hard to get things maybe outside access, logistics? Maybe it's beneficial to have some sort of stage delivery as well. I think subcontractors have been brought up quite a bit in the sessions as having reliability, availability, dependency. Uh, if you only have one major subcontractor, several others, what does that look like? What needs to be added in to kind of add space for that margin there? Uh, and then rework, right? Understanding that now, ideally for us, what we always try to go for is a process that has minimal rework or no rework at all. But just being real with where your processes are does need to be a consideration, right? If there are some things that require a lot of rework, uh, that needs to be added in. But you are able to be more competitive when you have a tighter process that there's a lot less rework in that process. That is a competitive factor to have. So risk premium isn't padding. I want to make sure that's really clear. So it's not like a bowling with the bumpers on. My dad, we're avid bowlers in the family. I didn't get that gift or that trait. And so when I go or I take the kids, I'm okay using the bumpers to keep up with my dad on that. In this case, we call it sandbagging, right, for bowling. But risk premium is not sandbagging, right? It's not padding. It's not adding bumpers in there. It's the cost of uncertainty. It's priced honestly is a way to think about it. So if you kind of have any hesitation with it, like no, it's needed to keep you afloat in the business and business owners afloat. So if you had to pick one of these risk categories, just something to think about, uh, that you probably maybe underpriced the most, which one would it be? Get out of volatility, maybe lead time, delivery, subcontractors, rework issues. As this all goes in, which one maybe would be underpriced the most for you? So now we're going to make this practical as you're kind of answering that in the chat or just sharing some thoughts around it. So for each of the major line items, we want to be able to choose three options or have three decisions in order to move forward with it, right? We can call it a lock. We want to lock the price in where we can, maybe have an allowance or some sort of escalation. So locking the price is just what it sounds. When the pricing is stable, when we understand the specs, the spec is firm, the supplier confirms a hold, right? Everything's good to go. We want to be able to try to lock it in, right? So we bought an item recently at a certain price, and the supplier can confirm that, yes, we're going to lock this price in, it doesn't change. That allows us to have confidence when we go out for bid and price it out. Now, we can use an allowance tool or vehicle. Maybe the spec is not firm, right? We're still working with the client or customer trying to figure things out. So customer's still selecting finishes or options, or maybe even the material has maybe different quality tiers with different price ranges, and we're still trying to figure out which one is the best option. So maybe the customer wants mid-grade at first, but hasn't selected the actual product. So it's hard to lock something in that's not defined. Right. So that's an example of kind of having some allowance. So we're quoting today, but installation is 60 to 90 days out. Supplier pricing is only held for 7 to 10 days. That's an exposure to the business owner. Right. Uh, and so we want to be able to have allow for some flexibility there, if as much as possible. And then of course we have escalation language. Again, we're not legal. We're not providing any legal advice. But I have seen with some of the clients I've worked with, it's good to have that, whether that's an official change order that works with the client or anything that allows to call out, here are the risks that we're seeing, and we have to be able to move and adjust accordingly, so we don't have to take all the risk on directly. So let's talk through, as we see this, 3 traps that cause estimates to miss uh, multiple different times here. Oh, might went off here. So we have trap one. It could be the takeoff errors, and we mentioned this earlier on in this session as we're looking at some of the things that can come up. So we have the takeoff errors where maybe where material is now short on site. Uh, but as we look into this, an approach we like to use for anything that we see is called like the 5 why analysis, where we take an issue and we kind of ask why a couple times to get to a root cause. And so if we see, hey, maybe we have takeoff errors, well, why is that, right? The takeoff, maybe we missed a section. Well, why did we miss this section in the takeoff? Well, maybe we rushed it. Well, why? There was no peer review step. We didn't have another check or balance in place. Well, why is that? Well, we don't have a standard to do a peer review, right? And so simple enough, it could just be, the fix and what we have here. It's just have a second eyes on every bid that's over a certain amount, right? Just make sure we didn't miss anything uh, to minimize the exposure that we would have. And so all of these kind of follow that same principle. So trap one, takeoff errors. Trap two, scope creep. Right? So we priced at the scope, but doing work that wasn't, bid. So no clear scope line in. So fix is every bid names the 5 scope boundaries in writing, like what's in scope, what's out of scope, and if something needs to be added to scope, that's a change order. Right? We have a conversation around that just to make sure that everything is good. In trap three, maybe optimistic labor hours, right? Hoping for the best case scenario with labor hours. So something could be a job takes 40% longer than priced. The root of that, after going through a 5 why analysis or getting to root, estimating off best crew and the best day, right? We want a good case scenario ourselves, but maybe that doesn't allow us some wiggle room that we need. So again, this goes back to having data and pricing it off of actual historical hours, not theoretical. And I would even recommend in some cases, I know there's databases out there, there's standards that can be used. That's good, especially when you're dealing with subcontractors. But it's always good also to base off your own actuals, right? And so whether you're better than standard or maybe your team is still improving to get to standard, basing it off of actuals just make sure that everything lines up. So if any of those traps you resonate with these or you experience them, yeah, share that in the comments. So we do recommend, and this is just putting a control in place, something simple. It's not rocket science, right? Uh, and you can create your own, but as every every quote or every bid leaves, that as we talk about a peer review, or if it needs to go just do a checklist on your own, just having a sort of check. Right? Here are the things that for our business, for your business, that you want to make sure is happening. And so we call this like an SOP, standard operating procedure. This can be part of your control plan to have a more consistent, reliable process in place. So part of it could be take off peer reviewed if bid is over that certain dollar threshold. Maybe even verify the base cost has been verified, materials, labor, equipment, subs. Have we considered overhead recovery? Has it been applied per the standard rate? Did we look at risk premiums? Did we evaluate those? Target margin. What is the target margin for this job? Have we identified that? Is that included? Or are we taking a hit in our margin for whatever strategic reason that could be? Uh, Based off of what's there, what are we locking in? What are we allowing or escalating? Do we have the scope boundaries listed in writing of what's in scope for this project and what's out of scope? That makes it really clear as we need to, whether it's escalation or use a change order if something is outside of the scope or outside of those boundaries. Uh, Quote expiration date stated. Right? No open-ended commitment to make sure there's an expiration date. Now, for some of you, like, oh yeah, that's obvious. I've seen it. I've seen it where in some cases there's not expiration date on the quote that's there. So a good checklist turns a good bid into a consistent one. Again, this is all about just having a repeatable process to make sure. Now, this is just an example. You may have other things that you may want to incorporate into yours, or even remove things, but this is something that will be very helpful to use and implement. So if you had this checklist in place today, which item would catch the most mistakes for your team from what you've seen, or at least help improve the most as you're looking at items 1 through 8? Get a chance to take a look at that and share some thoughts in the comments here. Now, one of the things we do in all of our sessions, we like to think about the difference between different sorts of businesses, the guardrails by size. It's the same formula, but always different guardrails. So like a smaller operation, a solo shop, uh, governance would run at that same level, as if a larger entity would. Right. So the goal is always to keep it simple. Okay. So the goal is to always keep it as simple as possible as things are growing. Minimum, never bid below, a certain X percentage without an owner sign off, right? Maybe our simple markup guardrails. Uh, Weekly top items price sheets, use it consistently. And we mentioned price sheets in a previous session that we had already. So some of these things are connecting as we weave everything together in these webinars. So those are some of the things that consider. If you're on the right-hand side, now it's easier to actually have a playbook, right? Or what we call a standard operating procedure. I still recommend a checklist no matter where you go, but as you have more people working in the operation, it is good to have a standard operating procedure or a playbook. Maybe different pricing rules by job type and customer type, maybe a formal exception process. You're able to track things a little bit differently, monthly plan versus actual materials. So some more data and insights along the way. Now, at the end of the day, what we always advise, we don't want discipline to make like a lot of rules and a lot of bureaucracy, and now we have extra steps just to manage the process. We're just trying to put simple checks in place to make sure we have something that's consistent overall. And so you don't have to do this now. This is something to take away from, to kind of think about. So just thinking about where you may be, if you look at your last 10 closed jobs, your last 10 bids, even if it's the last 5, or we can even go the last 3, kind of do a quick it's a self check, right? For you and your team, what was your average, maybe bid to actual variance as a percent? And this is where we say data is so powerful to go back and take a look at that, right? We're not just moving job to job, but we're looking at the history, right? The numbers. uh, what is that difference, right? Because that helps understand maybe there's a factor that we miss. Like I was saying, we wanted to get as consistent as possible, but to do that, understanding and looking at the history is helpful. So how many of your bids came within like maybe 5%? The actual job to the bid is only 5% difference. Which category maybe drove the most variance? Was it materials? Was it labor? Was it the subcontractors? Right? Uh, is it something that you're even tracking now? If not, I highly recommend going back and then pulling this and just and doing so. Okay, here's what we estimated versus the actual. This would be a very good practice, at least help level set. I want you to notice what we're saying here on the slide. If you can't answer these questions, that's okay. But what was your average bid to actual variance? Again, how many came in with the 5%? What category drove the most? And are you still tracking these? So these slides will be sent out. You'll have these questions. Feel free to take a picture if you want it now or write it down. But go pull some data and see where you stand with it. So if you do start tracking and you learn that maybe subcontractors drive the most variance for you, uh, maybe your pricing work has to change, or maybe it's materials that drive it most for you. Maybe it's then at that point, if it's materials, you need stronger risk premiums to account for that. Or if you find out it's labor, uh, having historical hours and tracking that to better estimate assumptions moving forward, it'll help you understand where to tighten and get better in that pricing in the bidding process. All right, so as we're getting close to wrapping up here, some of this the takeaways. So number one, just remember for bid price, include that base cost, your overhead, risk, uh, and your margin. Right, all four, every bid. Add that to your check sheet. If you don't have the check sheet, add it in there. Number two, markup is not margin. And so, but we always want to consider our margin and have a strategic or an intentional conversation around what that should be for each job and make those decisions accordingly. And then three, you have the options or the decisions to try to lock in a price, allow or escalate. And so one of these three on every major line item would be necessary, right? Try to lock it in if you can, if it's stable, allow for some flexibility if it's not stable, and then also have an escalation path if that's required. So that covers from a pricing materials perspective. As we get close to wrapping up, I always want to share we do have a business maturity assessment. Uh, it's a practical diagnostics tool that looks across key areas. We look across finance, process, tools, governance, customer experience. It's been very helpful for businesses that we support and we work with. It's even just helpful to have. Our feedback on this has been really positive overall, where it gives a complete report. It shows where there's opportunities, where there's strengths, and room for improvement. Right? So it's not to judge; it's to provide insight, right, and identify where there's strengths and weaknesses. So it's worth doing, even if you already feel like you're doing well. The assessment just gives a structured way to see gaps that are easy to miss potentially in the day to day. So these are all the things it covers in the assessment. And so we provide a QR code here. The links will be sent out once the PDFs, the presentations are sent out, but you can scan the QR codes and take the business health assessment right now from your phone, if that's something that would be of value to you. And we always appreciate any feedback. And so the link on the right-hand side, the QR code is for feedback for the webinar that we have. And just a quick note, our next session in this series, I believe it may be the last session as well, is leveraging inventory. Okay. But now, if you would like any help interpreting your results, if you do take the business health assessment, it's like, you know what, this is great. Uh, we do offer it, with our partnership with the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber. It's something that we just offer as a value add. And so if you would like some feedback on what the results are, reach out. We have Juliana on the line. You can reach out to her. If you submit the assessment, we have your information and we can reach out to you directly and schedule some time to review that. And that's just because of our partnership with the chamber. Now, what I have on the next slide is just opening up to see if there are any questions that we have, but I'll keep it here just so everyone can see the links. All right. See the chat around what's there we go. See question. Yep, the presentation will be available. I see that's already been answered in the chat. Sounds good. Well, I don't see any questions coming through. You guys have been a pleasure. I'm going to hand it back over to uh, our host, the Hispanic
Hey,
Chamber.
awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to remind everyone, stay tuned for the next and final session. I think we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from our members that have been attending this. We really hope we can continue to do it again, and I'm confident that we will. We'll be able to do this again. But I want to make sure that a couple concerns that people had was the webinars, if they're going to be available. They will be available. We wanted to make sure that they lived in one place versus just sending the links individually and randomly. So we are building out a landing page on our website. We did receive the permission of Dylan Morgan Consulting to pretty much upload those videos. So we'll have those ready for you. As you may know, building out the page, it is a little bit of a technical process, which is why we delayed it. But I think by this evening, we should be able to have that up and running. I am going to add in the chat though the link for the next event or the final session that we're going to have. Go ahead and use that to register. If you aren't able to, no worries. I'll go ahead and do manual registration for all the people that showed up today. So you will be receiving that notification. And then also, if you want to just share it to other contractors that you know are in a similar stage or maybe even at a far more advanced stage that can get value out of this, we definitely encourage you to do so. We've been pushing it out a lot because we see that there's so much value behind this. So I want to thank you so much, Akil, for taking the time to meet with us, and I'm excited for the next webinar. So feel free to reach out to Akil and his team, or feel free to reach out to us if you have any other questions. So thank you so much, everyone. We will see you in the next session.
Happy Tuesday, all.